Hi.
Hello again. We're at the end of Genesis chapter 22. The sacrifice of Isaac has just taken place, and of course, at the last moment, God spared Isaac. And now we go on with the last chapter of Abraham and Sarah's biography, having to do with the death and burial of Sarah. Mm-hmm. We'll start at the end of chapter 22. Now after these things it was told to Abraham, Behold, Milcah also has borne children to your brother Nahor. Uz is his firstborn, Buz his brother, Kemuel the father of Aram, Kesed, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel. Bethuel fathered Rebekah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother. Moreover, his concubine, whose name was Reumah, bore Tebah, Gaham, Tahash, and Maachah. Sarah lived 127 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died at Kiriath Arba, that is, Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham went in to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And Abraham rose up from before his dead and said to the Hittites, I am a sojourner and foreigner among you. Give me property among you for a burying place, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. The Hittites answered Abraham, Hear us, my lord, you are a prince of God among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our tombs. None of us will withhold from you his tomb to hinder you from burying your dead. Abraham rose and bowed to the Hittites, the people of the land. And he said to them, If you are willing that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hear me and entreat for me Ephron the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he owns. It is at the end of his field. For the full price let him give it to me in your presence as property for a burying place.
Now Ephron dwelt among the sons of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the presence of the sons of Heth, all who entered at the gate of his city, saying, No, my lord, hear me. I give you the field and the cave that is in it. I give it to you in the presence of the sons of my people. I give it to you. Bury your dead. Then Abraham bowed himself down before the people of the land. And he spoke to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, saying, If you will give it, please hear me. I will give you money for the field. Take it from me, and I will bury my dead there. And Ephron answered Abraham, saying to him, My lord, listen to me. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me? So bury your dead. And Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out the silver for Ephron, which he had named in the hearing of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, currency of the merchants. So the field of Ephron, which was in Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field and the cave, which was in it, and all the trees that were in the field, which were within all the surrounding borders, were deeded to Abraham as a possession in the presence of the sons of Heth, before all who went in at the gate of his city. And after this Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah, before Mamre, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. So the field and the cave that is in it were deeded to Abraham by the sons of Heth as property for a burial place. Mm-hmm.
So as I said at the beginning, this is the climax of the story of Abraham, and it ends with the sad note that he has to bury his dear wife. Mm-hmm. In the previous chapter, he's been asked to sacrifice his son. Now he does lose his wife. Mm-hmm. And you think, well, this is the saint of the Old Testament, the father of all those who have faith, and yet he's being asked to sacrifice and suffer at this level. And therefore, the great message, of course, of the Abraham story is that not even the greatest saints are spared suffering. They share in the suffering of God, who must suffer with our suffering.
It's a common suffering, the suffering of loved ones. And he mourns for her and weeps for her.
And the fact that he honors his wife is so extraordinary when you think of all the tensions they've had in their life, especially fighting about their sons, who they waited so long for.
Yeah, but that's common to marriage too.
Yeah.
There are ups and there's downs. There's hard times and good times, and sharp words and soft words.
Yeah, they've had a lot of differences, but they've struggled together and brought two great nations at least, and then many more, we're told earlier. Many more nations will come forth from the womb of Sarah ultimately, but from the seed of Abraham, right? And I'm struck in this chapter again by the relationship between the believer and his pagan neighbors.
Yeah, they respect him. They call him a mighty prince. I think yours said a prince of God.
Yeah.
So they definitely respect him, and he respects them. He speaks with them, and does all the traditional stuff. It's a little more elaborate than we're used to. But this seems to have been the Middle Eastern way of contracting things, deeding things, and
Public.
they did it in public in front of other people, so there's safety in that. But also there's assurance that it's never going to be questioned later, that this is his property, this place.
As long as the parties are honorable, that is.
And they are.
They
The
are.
evidence is that they continue to respect this contract that was made from this family to another family.
We in the West could envy the social graces that go into this this arrangement that he is able to make it. We've seen it already with his situation in Egypt with Pharaoh and his court. We've seen it with Abimelech when he got back to the Promised Land.
Yeah.
There's no necessity of us being at odds and in hostility with our neighbors, and today we can envy these social graces that have been thrown away.
Yeah, I think the publicness of this at the city gate, that always reminds me of how we do trials in the Watchtower. They're secret.
Yeah.
They're private. People don't know what was discussed, what was at issue.
They have to guess.
Yeah, you leave people to use their own imaginations, and they usually think the worst of the person. It's not like this in public. This is the respected way. Even the court system's like that. It's done where the public can come and hear it, and more than just a little group.
So the irony is, of course, that the first deeded property that Abraham receives is from the Hittites, number one, and that it's a grave.
Yeah.
So the inheritance of the Promised Land, well, it's very, very partial at this point.
Yeah. We were going to read
F.B. Meyer.
F.B. Meyer's comment. Perhaps we can never realize how much the members of such a household as Abraham's would be to one another. Through long unbroken periods they lived together, finding all their society in one another. The course of pastoral life left ample leisure for close personal intercourse, and it was inevitable that human lives spent under such circumstances should grow together, even as trees in a dense wood, wherein they sometimes became so entangled and entwined that no human ingenuity can disentangle one from another. Thus it must have happened that the loss through death of one loved and familiar face would leave a blank, never to be filled, and scarcely ever to be forgotten. We need not wonder, therefore, that so much stress is laid upon the death of Sarah, the chief event of those 50 years of Abraham's life. Nor need we regret that such ample details are given of her death and burial, since they enable us to get a glimpse of the patriarch, and even see if he is altered at all during the quarter of a century which has passed over him. I did love this quote, especially the first part about the closeness of their relationship because of the lifestyle of the people, of him being a sojourner, and he would have so much time in which he would be spending it just in conversation with his wife and his children and his people. We could envy that in today's world, because even families, all families that love each other, don't get to spend an awful lot of time in that kind of closeness, in dialogue with each other. So I'm very grateful that through the choices we made, we've been able to do that, spend an awful lot of time in each other's society. With Max, between us, because we worked part-time, we arranged it so that we could spend more time with each other, and I think this is a good thing, and society hasn't been structured to make that easy for people.
Indeed not. And here's Franz Delitzsch on this irony of the landed property. The first landed property of the patriarchs was a grave. Such was the sole possession which they purchased from the world, and the only permanent one they found here below. And so at the end of the book you have both Jacob and Joseph wanting their bones to be taken back to the family burial place.
Right.
And Campbell Morgan, this is an angle that I might not have thought of without his help, which is the idea that spare thyself, which we've just discussed. That is, that Abraham at the end of his life is not spared the death of his wife, even though he's favored of God, and he's even asked to sacrifice his son. Campbell Morgan meditating on the philosophy of hell. The ultimate, then, in faith is that of such obedience to the call of God as brings the soul to the point of the giving up, not of something wrong, but of anything and everything, in order to the accomplishment of divine purpose. Though such giving up entails suffering, which is fellowship with the suffering of God, through which alone the redemption of man is possible. This is the ultimate in faith. Beyond this comes vindication by sight. When there fell from the lips of an apostle of Jesus the words, "Spare thyself," the answer of Jesus was, "Get thee behind me, Satan." The philosophy that expresses itself in the advice to spare thyself is the philosophy of hell. It is the philosophy which carries us all the way to the withholding of nothing, which brings us into true fellowship with the God who spared not his own Son, but delivered him up for us all, which is heaven's philosophy.
Yeah. So this reminds me of God has taken on suffering, and it makes him be like us.
Yeah.
Or understand us.
Yeah. Indeed. So what's the link?
The link is a video we did called Kingdom Now, Get Behind Me, Satan. J.W. Cross Free Prosperity Gospel.
Yeah. That's based on Matthew chapter 16. There's, I think, about 2 or 3 videos on Matthew 16. This was maybe the second or third.
Okay.
But anyway, we'll link it directly on the screen. See you soon.